Today we'll be doing a do-it-yourself oil change, which I've done many times. Basically, I pull it down into the street because it's flat, and if I drip oil, it's on the street and not in the driveway. So have your standard ramps, and we will pull the car right up. The oil or the engine is warm, so the oil is warm, which is ideal for this. So let's get started. So the next thing we'll do is make sure that we're on. And sometimes when you do this, the way that it lines up, the bottom or the back of the ramp tips up and you have to redo it. But it looks like we're on and we're secure. So engine can get turned on, parking brake on. So just a quick peek in the engine bay. This thing's pretty clean. Next project on the list is to replace the insulation. It's really the only thing that's up with this. So right now, for safety measures and for peace of mind, we're going to use a set of jack stands as reinforcement. Okay, on both sides now we have frame jacks, or whatever you call those. Just as I said, peace of mind. These ramps are old, not horribly old, but and I always inspect the ramps to make sure they're not cracking or dry rotting or anything, so they're in good shape. Previous to this, I had a metal pair and they failed. They actually bent at one point, so I replaced them. And before that, for years, I had the same exact pair I have now. They lasted pretty well, so we're gonna get to work. All right, two things I just want to point out before I go underneath the vehicle here is, one, I tend to like to open the engine oil cap now, and then I don't know if it makes a difference when you're draining the oil, but it's kind of like when you're pouring a gas can, you open up the little air thing to let the air out. Don't know, I'm not a mechanic. This is like shady tree weekend warrior type stuff here, but I've done this dozens and dozens of times. So, that's just what works for me. The other thing to point out is, with age comes wisdom. I tend to use these disposable gloves. Didn't start doing that until COVID. I had a ton of these gloves. Now I just use them and they come in handy. Okay, I am now under the vehicle, and I apologize for any poor camera work. I am off the tripod and just have it in my hand, so I don't know, based on the iPhone, if you're gonna see this upside down, sideways, or what. But you could see the drain plug, very easy. And this car is a 95, and just taking a quick look at, I like to inspect for rust. I had one of these in 06 that I lost due to some serious rust that destroyed the rockers, not the rocker panels, the rockers. People get those confused. And then here I see some surface rust just on the frame, but the rockers look rock solid. Everything else looks good. So while we're here doing this, I do have, not that this is a product endorsement, but I do have a solution. We'll get to that maybe in a side video that basically stops the rust and prevents it. Okay, so we are going to loosen this. And while this wasn't loose, it also wasn't, I hate if you have a shop do it and they like use one of their air guns or air wrenches to put this back on, because it's really, it doesn't need to be on that tight. And what I like about this is, like, I am not totally under the car. I'm not even flat on my back. I'm kind of on my side with much of my body, like, not even under the car. So I think I got it. Yeah, the oil's still warm, which is good. There it goes. I should probably loosen this cap. So I have one of these typical buy at Walmart pans, plastic pans. I just removed the cap, so that's why you're hearing all the bubble sounds of the air. Now you're not, because the cap's off. So normally when I'm not filming this, I am not under the car at this point in time. I am actually preparing the oil filter and wiping my hands off with a shop rag. But just wanted to show you that. So we will pause and let that finish. Okay, so while the rest of the oil is draining, usually I make myself useful. In a previous video I talked about this, but I like to use Fram Ultra Synthetic. While this car is not a pristine condition car, it is in really, really nice shape. You know, it's not you could say museum quality, but it's in really, really fine shape. We did get a little drizzle, of course, while we were doing this, so it looks a little wet, which is no big deal. However, I do like to protect it, and I use ultra synthetic Fram, which is the XG2, because it's the 4.6. And then I talked about in the previous video, Royal Purple. What I like to do while that's draining is prepare my oil filter. Of course, someone seemed like to open this from the bottom. What I like is they also have the grip, where like the Purelator brand doesn't have that grip, I don't believe. Mobile One, Purelator, whatever, you can use them all. I think even Royal Purple might make one. So what I do is I just get a little bit of oil on the tip of my finger and just moisten the gasket. So I learned how to do all of this when I was probably about 17 years old. My best friend's dad was showing him how to change the oil on his Camaro, and I paid attention, and then I just basically I borrowed his ramps and attempted it on my own with, I think, my friend watching to make sure I did it right. And ever since then, for years and years and years, when I drove Lincolns like this and Grand Marquis and Mustangs, Fox body Mustangs, I changed the oil myself. It could be January, I would do it. It could be a gravel driveway, I would do it. I'm a little wiser in my older age, and I change the oil in this car once a year because I don't drive it as much. But my daily vehicles now, I just have those go in the shop, and I don't lay on the ground in January to do that any longer. In a pinch I could, but it's tough on the body. Okay, now we're kind of at the drip drop phase, and because this oil is not filthy, I'm not really worried about it. I just try to take a rag and clean up the surface, and then my drain plug, a lot of this stuff is by feel because I can't see. Drain plug looks like it's in good shape. I'm trying to actually do it through the camera, but that's hard. So hand tighten it as best we can. And then we take my now oily, nice socket wrench, and that just hit. Okay, that is good. So I'm a little sloppier than normal because I got the camera. Normally, even though I'm on a street and I'm not so worried about oil drops, I still try to be respectful and obviously the environment as well. I don't, you know, we're not leaving any puddles here, of course, but there's a little drop here or there. I do have a gravel section in my driveway for like extra storage where this car actually sometimes sits, or extra parking, I should say. But I don't like to put the ramps on the gravel. It's tough. I've done it, but it's hard on the body too. Okay. Let's see, the camera's not cooperating with me. Okay, I'm trying to get the camera to cooperate because I'm at a twisted angle. You can see the oil filter there. So one of the things I learned with this car the very, very hard way, I had the same exact car, a long time ago. Same year, same everything, same color. You wouldn't be, there's only one minor detail that you'd be able to tell the difference. That's for another day. But changing the oil filter in that car, for whatever reason, the oil filter would not fit out. You would unscrew it, it would just sit there. You could not get it out. The only way I figured out how to get it out after like an hour of laying upside down is to put the car neutral, push it down off the ramps because you have no oil in it, and manually, because you have no power steering at that point, manually turn the wheel so it clears the oil filter down there. However, the first time I went to go change the oil in this car, I did not have that problem. I could get that oil filter right out. Don't know if since, because that car I haven't had since 2001, don't know if the actual oil filters changed themselves, which I don't think they did, the PH2 or XG2 from Fram. So it actually comes out without that rigmarole, but I am fully aware that I might have to do that. This oil filter in there, it might have been done by the shop because I don't recognize an all black oil filter. Okay, so we have this on, and I loosened it off camera because it was just the angle I'm at even now with like completely contorted my body, and I am trying to get this off one-handed. Okay, we got it pretty loose. So I do have the oil pan underneath. Let's see if we can get it by hand now. Believe it or not, I'm actually watching myself do that. Well, not myself, I'm watching it through the camera because the camera has a light. And the problem is, I gotta use my left hand. All right, here it comes. We are gonna be dripping oil. You know, without recording this, I can do this in about 20 minutes, the whole thing in 20 minutes and be done. But I've also learned today, there goes the oil. I've also learned today that it is possible for me to do this one-handed because I've had the camera in my hands much of the time. Okay, so now I'm just trying to drop the oil filter down one-handed. Get it out. See there? You have to, there we go. All right, I'm gonna try to back off because I'm gonna, I normally don't do it like that, but again, I was doing it one-handed. So here it is. And the other important thing to notice is always make sure that this little gasket, see how loose that is? Make sure the oil filter gasket that we had just oiled on the new one comes off, or not comes off the filter, but is not attached to the car, because you will have major oil leaking everywhere. So we just dump that in there. All right, that's done, and I got oil on me. So there it is up there. So we're now, if I can reach the new one, which was apparently right by my head. All right, now we're going to switch hands here and try to follow the path. Well, first, I'm going to wipe this oil off for numerous reasons. One, it needs to be off. Secondly, so it's not all over me. Okay, which I think it's too late for that. All right. So the trick is get it up. And now I'm just going by feel. There's no rush to do this. You take your time and you just line it up and you feel for it. And I'm spinning this on here I never even saw it. I just did it by feel. Now again, I've done this so many times, I don't have to actually look up there to see. Now with these, I know some people will use the oil filter wrench and crush them and put them back on. Don't do that. Hand tight, hand tight. That's what that grip is for. One of the reasons that grip is for. Okay, hand tight, it is on. That is it. We're back in action. And I think I will just make sure so we're not dripping oil as I get it on my watch. All right, next step is to put the oil back in the car. One of the ways I know that I didn't change the oil on this the last time is this oil filter. There is no name brand on it, unless somehow it had a label on it, like Ford, Motorcraft, or something like that, and it peeled off. But it's just a complete black, oil filter. But everything in there, everything looks clean, so I'm not really worried about it. The orange there makes me think of Fram, but I don't know. That's why I like to change my own oil. All right, so now we're ready to put our royal purple oil in, which I talked about earlier. We got this long red funnel. It seems to be what works. You kind of have to work with it, right? Just make sure I'm not dripping all over the place. I know that these older 4.6 mod motors, while they will run, you can just run them for hundreds and hundreds of thousands of miles. I do know if you don't properly take care of them, at some point the rings could be on their way out, which will lead to white smoking, if you will, coming out the exhaust. This thing, knock on wood, has been really good. The previous one I had, as I talked about when I was under the car, had 265,000 miles on it when I retired it, but it was leaking. I would leave puddles of oil, and I wasn't sure. And I was much younger then when I had that car, and I wasn't sure if it was valve cover gaskets or oil pan or what was going on at the time. This one, knock on wood, has been tight, which has been good, but it also gets babied. That car the one I just mentioned, was a vehicle that I drove all over creation and back as a young guy. All right, so this called for 5 quarts. We put 5 quarts. There's been, for those who don't know, and I didn't know, I always do a gut check because the multiple vehicles I have, I'd always do a gut check because I always can't remember if it was 5 quarts. Like my Grand Marquis, which was the old 5.0, the push rod, was 4 quarts. My Fox Mustang was 4 quarts. These are 5 quarts. I believe my 06 Town Car, when I had it, I think that was 6 quarts. So just for a gut check, I always double check. But I noticed that in recent years, Ford had a Bulletin. It used to be, they're now recommending 5W20. And what is interesting is these cars are ancient now. And a technical bulletin was just released not long ago that they recommend now 5W20. I used to use, I can't remember now, it was probably 10W something, but now 5W20, or maybe it was 5W30, can't remember. But I remember back in the day with my Fox Mustang and my 80s Grand Marquis, that 5.0 was always 10W30. It just stuck in my head. It's like what I put my lawnmower, 10W30, 10W40. These are now 5W. And I believe I think the 5W20 is also what I put in my 06, but now they have you put it in this. 06 had the same motor as this, except I believe that's when by then they changed the heads on it, plastic intake manifold, which is a whole different story. So it looks like we are now finished putting the oil in. All right, so we're gonna crank it up. Then we're gonna pull the frame jacks out and pull off the ramps and let it get up to temperature. This is the part I hate the most, believe it or not, is because there was no oil in the vehicle. So for a brief second when it starts, before the oil cycles through, like you sometimes hear that. I feel like you hear the pistons up in the cylinders, not happy for a second. So you can hear those of you who know these cars, the air suspension, you can hear that was just the air compressor. I did hear, to my trained ear, when I first cranked it, maybe the first 2 seconds of almost like a very faint knocking sound, and that's because there's no oil up in there right at the moment. So now we will pull out the jack stands. And I will pull it down off the ramp. We'll let it run. All right, so we will let it run for just a couple minutes, basically while we clean up and put everything away, and then we'll do a quick oil check. All right, so we let the car run for a little bit. I don't know what that is, but clean that off. Let the car run for a little bit. It is warm. Check the old dipstick. Should be nice and clean. Very clean. Sometimes with the synthetic oil, you don't even see it. Yeah. So I could see it right at the top of the fill line where the arrow ends. It's tough to see because it's so clean. There we go. That's better. You can see it right there. So we're good. We're at the top of where it says full. So we are in excellent shape. And what I'm stunned about this is, for as ancient as this car is, in 95, it's 29 years old, I don't have to add oil between oil changes. So that's really good. I have to get some cleaner for that. That's normally not there.